Okay, sorry, my iPad ran out of memory space in the middle of that. So basically, I have now taken the square root of both sides, getting plus or minus 1. So what this would be, these are my x-intercepts. So what I was about to do here is figure out, in my problem, they only want me to go from 0 to 2. So negative 1's not an issue. I'll just stick the 1 here. I'm going to sub in a value between 0 and 1 into my function to see if it's positive or negative. So if I sub in a half, 1 minus a half squared, 1 minus a fourth is going to be positive. If I sub in 3 over 2, that would be 1 minus 3 over 2 squared would be 9 over 4, and that's going to get me a negative answer. So I do have an issue to deal with. I see I have a negative, and since they're asking for the total area, I'm going to need to take the absolute value of that region. So once again, I'm just going to separate my integral. I know I'm going to need to go from 0 to 1, and that will be no issue because it's already positive. But I will need to go from 1 to 2, and to turn this negative into a positive, I'm going to need to put a negative here, because I'll get a negative and a negative, which would thus turn positive. Okay, so let me put my function. I have my 1 minus x squared dx. Okay, and then again, I'm just going to go through, I'm going to integrate, I'm going to set up my bounds here, and then I'll have you pause the video for you to go through and see if you get the same answer that I have. So I have x minus x to the third over 3, and that's going to go from 0 to 1. Over here, again, same integral. That guy is going to go from 1 to 2. Okay, subbing in 1, let's see what we have. We're looking at 1 minus 1/3. Subbing in 0, I'm looking at just 0 in there. Over here, 2 minus 8/3 minus 1 minus 1/3. Okay, so again, at this point, pause the video, do that more slowly, please, and see if you agree, and then let's see if you have the same answer. Okay? I'm about to say the answer, so pause it. Okay, my answer to this question is 2. Okay? Okay, all right, next. Last problem. Okay. This is number 8 on our problem. Hey, I just noticed that I skipped number 6 in our problem. Let me do this one and then I'll go back. I didn't realize that till just a second because I think that I thought it was just a picture from something else. But okay, sorry about that. We'll fix it. An object moves along a coordinate line with a distance to the right considered positive. If the velocity of the object again is given by this function over that interval, let's find the net displacement and the total distance. So here we go again, our two concepts. Net, integral, total distance, worry about where things are negative. So let's just go through and do this net displacement first. Integrate from 1 to 3, okay? And if you want, pause the video, do the problem, and then see how you did in the end. Okay, and then I have to sub in my 3 and sub in my 1, so. Okay, so check and see if you agree with those numbers. I'm checking mine just to make sure I don't do something silly. Okay, and then in the end, I end up getting 2/3 for this. That's the displacement. Okay, and then we have to find the total distance for the second part of this problem. So again, the total distance we're going to have to worry about, do we have any negative region? So if I have my velocity, if I set that equal to 0, let's factor that. So let's do 5 and 2, so minus 5 and minus 2, so I'm getting 5 and 2. That's where my particle is stopped. 5 is too big, so 2 is the only thing I have to worry about. Let me grab a different marker. This thing is dying on me. Okay, so velocity. I'm going to put my 1, I'm going to put my 3, and then again the 2 falls in there, so I don't need to worry about the 5. Subbing in values to the velocity function. If I sub in 1.5 into this function, I will end up getting a positive, and if I sub in 2.5 to this function, I'll end up getting a negative. You might want to just again pause the video to check that. Subbing in, I would say don't sub it in here. Sub it in to the factored version. So if I sub in 1.5, 1.5 minus 5 is going to be negative, and 1.5 minus 2 is going to be negative. So negative times a negative is a positive. That's how I got that so quickly. 2.5, if we sub that in here, we'll get a negative, and we'll get a positive. That's where I get my negative. Okay, so that's, I would sub it in here for sure. This is the guy I have to worry about. This is the piece I don't need to worry about. So we have to separate our integral. So we'll go from 1 to 2. We'll do another integral from 2 to 3. I'm going to slide this down. Okay, and since this is the negative, I know I need to put a negative here, and then I'll put my velocity function here. That's a dt. Okay, and again, I would pause the video, do this yourself, and see if we agree in the end. It's probably hard to see that, so let me erase this and make it bigger. Okay, so I'm going to start integrating right here. Okay, so that's integrated. Now we're going to sub in our 2, so that's the first one. 27 over 3 is 9. Subbing in the 2. Okay, I'm going to take a second and check to see if my numbers look good here. Okay, yeah, I agree with everything I have, and in the end, when you get this answer, you should end up getting 3. Okay, so again, if you're having a lot of trouble with your fractions, maybe Miss Craig can help you go through the details of this, but the calculus part of it, you know, is just taking the integral and realizing, again, the difference between distance and displacement. I hope that that went well for you today. It was a quick lesson, so now you have time to practice. And just be careful with the actual algebra, because that's the part where I guess if you're not using a calculator, it could really get you. All right, thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.